Welcome to episode 21 of the Developing Life podcast. As we witness the remarkable journeys of influential entrepreneurship, we see creatives are redefining what it means to succeed. How do they continue to defy expectations and pursue paths towards continuous growth? Today, we are joined by Emmy Award-winning director and educator, Chris Do. Chris is a self-described loud introvert and recovering graphic designer, and is also the founder of The Futur, an educational platform that focuses on teaching business design and creative practices with a bold mission to teach 1 million people how to make a living doing what they love. Chris has spent over 15 years teaching sequential design at Art Center and Otis College of Art and Design, and has shared his insights on negotiations, pricing strategies, branding, typography, and global marketing across various global platforms. His extensive speaking engagements include presentations at Adobe Max, AIGA National Design Conference, and many more around the world. Chris's dedication to education and his innovative approach to business has made him a pivotal figure in reshaping the industry. With our host, Davron Bowman, we'll explore how our perception of purpose evolves over a lifetime and how gaining insights on navigating these changes can impact personal and professional increase.
Thank you so much, True. Appreciate you as always. Chris, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good. Yeah, it's exciting. I've been waiting 6 years, I believe, for this. So
Shoot.
we'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
Welcome everyone in the audience. Thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation about defying expectations. Whose expectations? Societies and ourselves. I know a lot of you are familiar with Chris, the personal brand strategist and designer, but today I'm hoping to engage the tactical therapist and the emotional intelligence expert, because as technology continues to speed ahead at the rapid pace, our lives as creatives are about to get easier, which means there are a lot of doors opening for us. So it is time to learn how to unlock our true power, embrace our unique narratives, and move forward powerfully. And Chris, that is ultimately what you are a master of. So for those unfamiliar, would you please introduce yourself in your own words?
Sure, I think True did a great job. I'm a loud introvert, a recovering graphic designer, middle child, an above average student, but a first class troublemaker. And sometimes I pretend to be a serial entrepreneur and I play a therapist on TV. I'm not certified in anything, so please be careful in listening to anything that I say. That's my disclaimer.
Yeah, none of your advice has steered me wrong yet. So I know that you won't remember this because you've met thousands, probably millions of people in between. But I found you back in February of 2019, and the intersection of your journey and mine was just so well timed. Like the journey that you were on your Instagram, because I know some people aren't going to scroll back that far. On February 9th of 2019, you posted one of your last skateboard designs. And from there until June, you see a little test of this carousel. You see a few inspirational posts, books that you have been reading. Looks like some strategy and organization going on. And then this just whole new side of you dropped. And it was amazing for me because I stepped in, learned a ton from you, and then left. I went, like, grew my photography business, and then I came back to your information towards the end of December that year, and everything was different. And so that's what I would love to explore from your perspective, is that shift, that change, and what you were feeling, what led to that redefinition, because you were already successful.
Sure. Was that the question, or are you leading to
Yeah, so I just want to examine your,
okay.
what were you feeling during that shift? I know that you found carousels that were inspired, I think, by Michael Jonda at that time. He had posted
hmm
some, he'd been getting some really crazy results. What was it that shifted you from design into more of an educator? Were you not feeling fulfilled? Were you not feeling like you were creating the impact that you wanted, or did something change?
Okay, beautiful. I know how to frame the answer based on that. So in 2019, I'm already 2 years deep into creating content on YouTube. Back then, I think people would just say you're a YouTuber, and now they say a creator. And the industry has kind of matured a lot. But if I were to go in the Wayback Machine and rewind the tape, in 2017, as I look across the entirety of the YouTube landscape, there were very few accomplished professional people teaching what it is that they knew how to do. YouTube, I think, for good reason, was seen as this place of either young people who didn't know what they were doing, teaching, or people who were chasing some kind of fame, and that's who was predominantly creating content. So at that time, I found some answer I hadn't been looking for, which is how do I take these discrete skills that I have, my interests, my passions, things that I've studied and have taught, and bring it all into one. As I'm out on the stage talking about these kinds of concepts, I describe it as we're all kind of living a very fractured existence. There are pieces of us that we show one part of a community and other parts that we show to a different community. But very rarely do we show all of us to who it is that we're speaking to, unless you're really, really close to someone. So I've been on this mission in the last couple of years when I speak about personal branding is to help people find themselves, to find their voice, to fall in love with not only their strengths, but their weaknesses so that they can heal, so that they can become the integrated self versus the fractured self. And so in jumping onto YouTube, I'm able to tie together my experiences from entrepreneurship, things that I've learned in doing hundreds of sales pitches, combining my love for design, typography, presentation design, storyboarding, storytelling, and just my overall love for teaching and learning, all integrated into like one little package. And it's the beginning of me finding myself. And so Instagram just becomes the second part to that chapter. I think the first part is me showing up on YouTube, then finding out what to do on Instagram almost 2 years later.
So what age was that, Chris, that you were just starting to step into finding yourself?
Well, in 2014, I would be 42,
Okay.
I
So
think, if my math is right.
listening to a few of your podcast episodes, there was one that you talked about from the age of 9, from a very young age. You were hyper aware, you were always introspective, you always examined problems. So it took you from there till 42 to really step into your own. What was the journey in between there, and how did societal expectations or your upbringing lead you into a path that wasn't your own? Can you tell us maybe about some of the experiences that you went through that perhaps weren't your decision, but that you still participated in or took a journey into because it was there in front of you or because it was recommended to you?
Yeah. Until we turn 18 and start going to college, a lot of our lives are determined by the decisions that our parents make. I think turning 18, at least in America, means like you're an adult and you can make your own decisions. You can be emancipated if you wanted to before then, but 18 is that age. And so I felt like from 1 or 0 to 18, I was just following along whatever the plan was as best as I could. Now, luckily for me, in hindsight, I don't follow rules or instructions so well. So I was somehow able to escape adolescence into adulthood, mostly as who I wanted to be. My parents wanted me to do something safe and traditional. My dad, he has a very interesting philosophy about money because more money means more problems. He didn't wish for me to be rich or to be wealthy by any means. He just wanted me to be safe. And I think that's like as much as a loving parent can wish for their children to be safe. And for him, the world of design and creativity meant unsafe, unpredictable, and something that you can't really rely on to make it for yourself. And I think Asian parents, Asian culture in particular, it's not often that when children are still struggling through their careers, that they're forced to leave their home. You can stay and live with your parents until you're 30 or until you're married or whatever, and sometimes even after you're married. And this has been the case. So I think my dad's thinking, you know what, this is what I know. This has worked for previous generations. Get a good education, do something very traditional. The stereotypical things are like a doctor, attorney, an accountant, something in the engineering science space. That seems pretty safe.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to follow that. So I found my real voice when I had to face the reality of what am I going to do after high school? What was the plan? Because prior to that point, people are telling you what to do. And it's not until I find my path into graphic design that I start to get a clue as to who I was supposed to be in this world. And I really clinged on to that identity. And I used to tell people all the time, I'm a graphic designer. I would say that with great pride. I'm a graphic designer. That was my identity for a really long time.
And now you're a recovering graphic designer. So what is the contrast?
Good question. Well, I start to think about words a lot now, and it's kind of weird because I pursued design to escape words, like because I don't talk good as one would say. But then I start thinking about words and the power of words and language and how they can encapsulate our feelings. They can store our memories and frame experiences very specific ways. So when we say we're a graphic designer, you kind of think like, what kind of other designers are there? They're interior designers, fashion designer, culture designers, business designers. So I was thinking, well, what does a graphic designer do? Designs graphics. An interior designer designs interiors. But if we were talking about education and changing the way people think, graphic design seems pretty limiting now. And I'm not saying this from a pride or ego point of view where I'm trying to grab more than I am, because a lot of people do that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a graphic designer or a letter form designer if that's accurately sums up who you are. But my aspirations and my skill set expand beyond that. So I want to start thinking about things differently. And so that's why I say I'm a recovering graphic designer.
Why do you think it's so easy for people to fall into that snare? Because my personal journey pretty much dictates exactly what you said. I found your content, especially through COVID. It allowed me to redesign my business. I was doing media production for conventions in Las Vegas, the city that never sleeps, and then all of a sudden found myself without any source of income. Transitioning into design was something that I had always wanted to do. My childhood created an environment that did not allow me to pursue that, and similar to yours, did not encourage that pursuit. So it was so refreshing to find your content and start making progress in that industry. As I immersed more and more, I did realize that if we peeled away the graphic design elements, you were really teaching communication and consistency and how to connect, which is something that can be leveraged in multiple ways. I feel like now we live in a society where a lot of people are unfulfilled and it's attached to a title. So, can you talk a little bit about the danger of intertwining your identity and your perception of success with a label?
Yeah, I think labels are pretty convenient and serve a very utilitarian function for a lot of different things. When you run into someone in the street and you're trying to figure out each other, like what's your faith? And you might be multi-faith, I don't know, but you'll say one because it's a little easier to process. What do you do? Where are you from? So these are all clues about who you are. It's not everything, but it's something. So if I were to walk into a space and say, I'm a forward-thinking revolutionary educator who uses social media platforms, their head would explode. So if I said I'm a graphic designer, they're like, oh, I know somebody, my cousin Charlie does that, or my aunt May does that, or whatever it is. Now we can understand things. And I think one of the challenges around communication is to package information in such a way that the transmitter and the receiver are on the same wavelength. You've seen this before. Two people are speaking mostly at each other. No one's understanding anything from the other side. So we use labels like that. Like I'm a therapist, I'm a doctor, I'm an attorney that works in a certain industry. People understand that because we've come to understand these as broad terms that we can use. What becomes really interesting is when you use two terms that people understand and you bring them together. Like, for example, many years ago, there was a film, it was called The Horse Whisperer. And famously during the trailer, Robert Redford's character says, I don't help people with horse problems, I help horses with people problems. And I was like, that's great. So this term I'd never heard before, horse whisperer, is now used. You can be an accounting whisperer. You can be a story whisperer. And so we understand, like we can take two ideas that we understand and combine them together to make a new hybrid meaning that is more specific to what you do. Now, I do want to say something. What you do is not who you are. We know that. because at one point in your life, you might be working at an office in a cubicle doing like pushing paperwork around. Nothing wrong with that. And then the next day, you find this drive to be a painter or a sculptor, and that's a reflection of an activity that you do, but it's not who you are. So when we get into personal branding, so many people get stuck on this idea of like, well, my personal brand is I'm a broker, or I'm a real estate agent, or I'm a designer. No, that's what you do. That does not sum up your beliefs, your values, your preferences, your affinities. There's so much more to you than that. So we want to be able to separate those two things, that what you do can change, who you are probably doesn't change too much, like core.
I love that. That is so powerful. So back to your narrative, considering your journey, you're 18, you're free, there's a distance of time before you achieve your own success or realize it in your own way. Can you share the specific moment or experience that dramatically shifted your understanding of your own purpose? Or was it a gradual thing that happened step by step until it built up to a point that it was just unavoidable that you stepped into something new?
Mm. I can recall in my own life a very specific timeline with specific milestones. And each time I hit the milestone, my life or the future starts to change again.
Mhm.
And I can recall those pivotal moments in my life. So the first one was when I discovered that you can be a professional graphic designer and make a living. And that's when I met Dean Walker, who was a graphic designer, and I'd never even seen one before. I didn't even know these types of people existed. And so that set me on the course to like pursuing a career in design. And in being accepted into Art Center was a big pivotal moment. And this is the first place that I feel like these are my people, and I feel at home. Like I look around and everybody's in different shapes and sizes and different energies, but they all want to be creative humans. And to bring that many creative humans together, I think at the time, a student body of like 1,200 people, even though I felt like an outsider still, I felt less like an outsider. And each step of the way, getting a job in advertising, starting my own firm, were just different milestones that then took me in different paths. Meeting Jose at school, and then later on, many decades later, saying, let's go and start making content on YouTube. At that time was the craziest idea anybody had said to me, because it was the antithesis to who I was, my very nature. I'm a socially awkward introvert. Let's work behind the camera, let the work speak for itself kind of guy prior to that moment. I hated sales. I hated talking about marketing. And I didn't realize that pitching new business was sales. I didn't even realize that connection. I know I'm a brilliant, smart person. I didn't realize that because I thought still at that time, if you put together the right combination of images and words, you get the gig. What I didn't realize was this whole other layer of building rapport with the other person, making them feel seen and heard, understanding their inspirations and how they make decisions was one of the biggest factors in whether or not we would get the gig.
I would love to explore the topic of network and friendship and who you surround yourself with a little deeper, because that is ultimately, I can definitively say that your design education allowed me to redefine my business, but your humanity, your empathy, and your study of emotional intelligence is the thing that has really helped to redefine my life. And one of the things that set you apart from other influences that I had great respect for throughout my life was the fact that you surrounded yourself with a team that uplifted you and you shared the spotlight with them. You literally built a family setting. Without going too deep into my past, I was put in a scenario where I didn't have many relationships while I was younger. And so that is something that is extremely important to me now. As an introvert, it has been very hard to build that. And because people are people, sometimes your first connections are not the right ones. So, first, I would like to ask just outright, do you think that skill or network is more valuable in business?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I want to say the answer is yes.
Okay.
And I'm being tricky here on purpose, okay?
Okay.
Because we all know this. If you're in a powerful network, doors open for you, connections are made, introductions, referrals, and status, and all that kind of stuff. But in order for you to get into those networks, generally speaking, it's one of a couple things. Either you have a fairy godmother who's looking out for you, you're born into money, so Nepo baby, or you've earned your place in that network through the repeated practice of a singular skill set. And that's what gets you invited into these rooms. Now, I know this might sound weird to some people. I'm 52 years old right now. That's not the weird part. The weird part is I'm being invited into dinner parties and very small room conversations with people that I think, what is the common thread here? Everyone is ultra successful. I'm probably the least successful person in this group, financially speaking. And I'm being invited into these rooms and they're asking me about my ideas and opinions. And I keep reflecting on this and saying to myself, what did I do to get here? And if you were to take away the skill and the disciplined practice of doing something repeatedly, I'm not sure I would be in this room. I'm not sure I would be invited. That could just be my fear. So I don't know how you get into these better networking groups. And I just described maybe my thinking on networks is the level of friendship that you're invited into is not like if I was like some washed out kid who went to community college, worked on 4 brochures for some companies you've never heard of, I don't think we're having this conversation right now. Do you have a different point of view on this?
No, I'm just curious because it is one, just something that we all, I'm sure, have observed that we get passed over for opportunities that we are more than qualified for. In some cases, we've come back to find out that it went to a sister, brother, aunt, uncle, cousin, someone who was connected to family.
Yep.
Here recently, I have been thinking about which one is more sustainable, or I guess reverse engineering the question at the point that you are successful, which could be omitted. And I do feel like there's a certain point that you can reach where without skill, your network and connections would still, I think, sustain you. And I think that especially as introverts, it's an important conversation to have. Maybe not necessarily that we do without one, but that more focus needs to be put on networking, simply because as introverts, it's a lot easier for us to develop the skills because we're just holed up in our houses all of the time doing creative things. So I guess circling this back to the main conversation, can you speak to the power of surrounding yourself with people that you chose? And first start off with maybe your explanation of the power that we do have as adults to select the people that we are around and spend our time with.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, there's a lot of things to unpack here, and hopefully I can answer this in ways that are actionable and empower some folks here, okay? There are going to be networks that you want to be a part of. And being the nerdy kid in junior high and high school, I've always looked from one side of the fence very longingly onto the other side of the popular cool kids who seem to have their way, was kind of running the show, if you will, and just wanting to so badly to be part of that group. And because I wasn't the right skin color, shape, height, or hair color, I didn't feel like I was wanted or welcomed. And I think that's cool. That's totally cool. Because today, the tool that you have is to work on your personal development. That can include the soft skills as well as the hard skills. So that if you become really competent in things and you just keep doing this over and over again, I believe it's a very empowering thing that you can be invited. You don't even have to ask. You'll be invited to be in these circles. So I just want to put that out there for everyone who's like in the room, not feeling great about where they are. Maybe you're going through some anxiety or depression, that just realize this thing. Keep focusing on your skills and be hopefully the best in your city and then your state and in the nation. And eventually people will take notice. It's almost impossible to, but you do have to do a few things in order to accelerate or speed up that process. Don't make it your mission to be the world's best kept secret at doing X. Put yourself out there, take some chances, show your work in whatever way that you can, because at the end of the day, it makes total logical sense that people hire people they know. If I don't know you, how can I bring you in? How can I invite you to speak? Why do I give you the promotion? Because your head's down doing all the work beneath everything, and people just aren't aware. Sometimes it's through nepotism, and sometimes it's just because people are busy. They don't have time to make you their priority. They have their own priorities. So it's more neglect than it's malice. And I just want to put that out there. So when people are passing you up for opportunities and looking at someone less qualified than you have to realize something. A, just don't be resentful. People make decisions for 1,000 different reasons that we can't control. The things that we can control, we show up on time, we do our work, and we look for new challenges. We want to expand our responsibilities, and we seek actively critical feedback and understand what the goals are that matter to the people who our lives are dependent upon them deciding that you are doing a good thing. This has happened to me as a manager, as a business owner. Young people come up to me and it's like, you know what I did? I did X, Y, and Z. When do I get my promotion? How does that make me feel? Well, I'm glad you worked in X, Y, and Z, but none of those things matter to me. Did it ever occur to you, this person, to ask me, or for me to then communicate to you, this is what matters to me? Doing all this other stuff, it might be important to you, but it's not important to me. So here's the secret in life. If you help companies make more money, they would be fools not to promote you and to give you more opportunities. That's just the bottom line. So think about how you can contribute in ways that are measurable, and better yet, ask them. I would love to be considered for promotion 6-9 months from now. What is it that I need to do, or what kind of goals do you want me to accomplish, such that when I achieve that, it would be a no-brainer for you? Why don't we do that? And that'll help us out a lot. Now, let's say that you don't work within a corporate environment. You are your own boss. You're my people, first of all, okay? Now, I want to share this idea with you. Fame can be manufactured. I'm 100% evidence of this being true. Fame can be manufactured. It used to be certain gatekeepers would pull the velvet rope back and allow certain people through for whatever reason. I don't want to dispute or get into that part. But today, we have equal access to these platforms. And if we understand how to create content that people care about, and we show up in a genuine way, and we're authentic in who we are, and we're persistent and consistent in this, I believe slowly but surely, you will become the known entity in your space. There are things that you can do to accelerate that, but that's what people don't want to do. They're chasing social media hacks, use this way of phrasing something, or embed a pixel here. I'm making up stuff because I don't know this stuff. Do these hacks so that you can get fast growth. And I think it's a horrible way. Really, if you can help transform the lives of other people, they're going to feel some sense of relationship, and they're going to want to reciprocate the transformation that you've had on them by supporting you, by following you, by championing you and referring or recommending you to other people. That's just the social media secret that no one wants to talk about, because it's hard work to do that.
What are your top 3 pieces of advice to help people, or how did you step into this role? Because you went from behind the scenes to a national audience, and as intelligent as you are, as polished and professional as you are, you're still a human. So there's still going to be nerves at the start of that journey. So what was that like for you? What did you do to overcome it? And then what are your words of wisdom for us now having conquered that?
Okay. I haven't conquered it. I just want to put it out there. I'm struggling, just like each and every one of you. Just the struggle becomes smaller and smaller each and every time we do this. There are a couple of things. Now, hindsight is 2020. I can tell you what I would have done if I could have talked to myself. I'm not telling you this is how it worked out for me, but I can see the mistakes that happened in the very beginning. Number one, when you create content, when you put yourself out there, it's a very egocentric way to look at the world and say, well, how would they judge me? Well, this is really not about them judging you. It's just about you kind of figuring out who you are, figuring out your voice and what it is you want to say. And if you could just think about it, and I think Austin Kleon said this, just think of content creation as a form of public journaling, right? Like I write in my notebook. I don't journal, but I write all kinds of notes and conversations, but I don't often share them because I think, well, who would think this is valuable? And that's the number one mistake that we make. So let's just post this for ourselves first, and let's not worry about who shows up. And I think we get caught up so much in like, oh, I got 25% more engagement on this because I did this thing. So then after a while, if this is how you behave and how you work, then you wind up being a slave to your audience's reaction to your stuff. And this is a very extrinsic way to stay motivated. And this is not a good measure. Now, when I talk to people, people inside and outside our industry, I hate to say this, but the common theme in all of this is as kids, as perfect as our parents were, they were not perfect enough. That all of us could have used a little bit more love, a little bit more encouragement, and for them to accept us unconditionally. And if we all got that, we would be in a much healthier place right now. But the sad truth is, we didn't have that. So we're still now kids trapped in the bodies of adults, looking for that validation, looking for that love from some other place. And I have to tell you that it's like this thing, it's a bottomless pit. There's a black hole inside of you that no matter how much affirmation and accolades that you're able to acquire, it will never, ever be enough. And you'll be forever chasing this. And the only solution I know how to plug up that black hole is to have really long conversations with yourself, hopefully supervised with a therapist or a coach or a friend or a mentor, somebody you really trust, to help you work through this process so that you become intrinsically, internally motivated so that you know who you are. The example I love to share with folks is when I create work, I know it's good or I know it's bad. And if it's bad, I'm going to fix it before I put it in front of a client. And if it's good, I don't really care what the client says at that point. And if they say it's stupid, I'm like, okay. They said that's the dumbest thing we've ever seen. I say, okay, I guess that's your opinion on this. We won't be working together, and I respect that it didn't work out for you, but I know this work is good. I don't say that out loud. I just say that internally, right? But to imagine, like if I made something and I didn't know if it's good or bad before I showed to someone, that would be the craziest idea ever. So they're like, that's trash. You barely even tried. And then all of a sudden, I am my work, therefore I am trash. I'm not trying. I'm half-assing everything. That's not the case. I worked really hard on this. Maybe I missed a brief, or I had something in my blind side or my blind spot, which I couldn't see the problem clearly enough. And that's a fault that I can grow from. I can learn and be better next time. But this is the problem with lots of people. They create content, a video, a post, and they're like, I don't know what to think about it. And then the world is going to tell you, it sucked. We don't care. It's boring. But you're not boring. You don't suck. So I think everybody needs to get really in touch with who they are and understand, is this good? Does this reflect my intention? And if people have a bad reaction to it, I'm like, I don't know. That's what I could do. I'm sorry you're upset about it, but that's how I look at the world. I'll do better next time.
So that is your philosophy. I would love for you to give us a few actionable steps that will lead us there, because I know in listening to you that your outlook on the world is that we are in control of narrating our journey if we are aware and introspective, grateful, and open to being adjusted. The opposite side of that is that we adopt the victim mentality, and as a result, we just allow random things to happen and we create a lifestyle of reactivity instead of proactivity. So, how do we adjust that mindset? And I want to ask specifically for someone who has gone through experiences in which they are the victim, perhaps childhood trauma, things that were forced upon them, things that were completely out of their control. How do you defeat those narratives when they're real?
Yeah. Okay. We're wading to deep waters here, and I'm probably out of my league or depth here. Okay.
Okay.
I will say a couple of things though. I want to make a pop culture reference here.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Dune, Frank Herbert, and their latest retelling of the story is super cool. And I think the Bennett Jesuit witch asked Paul Atreides, "Do you know what the difference between an animal and a human is?" And the difference is humans can overcome their instinct, and animals only have instinct. So as he places his hand in the mystery box and she holds the Jam Gabar to his neck and says, if you pull your hand out, I will kill you. And this is a poisoned needle. And he's like, what's inside the box? Pain, immense pain. And this is the thing, is like, I think we are beyond animal instincts, that we have feelings and impulses. It's our ability to manage these feelings and impulses that keeps us as a civil society. So if I see you rocking around with a cool phone or stereo and I want it, I definitely do want it, I don't just bash your head in and just take it, because I can control my impulse. Also, if I meet somebody who's married, I'm like, well, I lust after that person. I control my impulses. And so if you have agency, and we can define it in a lot of different ways, if you have the ability to make a decision and you're an independent human being with free will, meaning you live in a country that you can say and think what you want for the most part and do what you want, then at some point we have to let go of our old story, the old narrative, and say, yeah, this one's on us. Yeah, I'm not saying me. Somebody could say I was abused as a child, verbally, sexually, physically, all those kinds of things. And I escaped an autocracy or monarchy, whatever, and I was able to get into freedom. But you don't want to let that be the entire narrative of your life. At some point, you got to say, you know what? That's enough. I'm going to close that chapter in my life and I want to move on, because that's a heavy thing for you to hold on to for the rest of your life. Now, as I said before, no one grows up in perfect, ideal circumstances. No one's in the perfect house, raised by the perfect parents who always knew exactly how to make us feel seen and heard. I think I'm a pretty good parent, but I'm far, far from being a perfect parent. And so at some point, I think, Davron, we have to just say to ourselves, am I in control? And it's a hard thing to do, because it means that you have to admit that the things you have in your life, your health, your wealth, your happiness, your success, that's on you at some point. Now, the moment you decide today is the day, it's on me, I'm not going to let my past dictate my future, your life can begin anew. And I've made the daily practice of saying everything that I was yesterday is just a memory. It's an illusion. So I try not to become attached to those things. And I'm sure you already know this, but there was a period in my life from ages, 1 to whatever, 18, on average, I would change homes or schools every 1.5 years. So my sense of home and family were really kind of unsettled, because I didn't know where I was going to be. And I really hated that growing up, but I've come to appreciate as an adult that instability allowed me to find myself no matter where I was. It allowed me to focus on other things, to become self-reliant, self-resilient, and to be accepting of myself. There's a doctor, I'm spacing on his name right now, John DeMartini. He has this philosophy, and it's pretty radical therapy work, and that there's no such thing as a purely bad thing, and no such thing as a purely good thing in terms of an experience. That all your bad experiences provided good things for you. So, okay, let me line it up for you, okay? I'm an ESL, first generation immigrant refugee from Vietnam. My parents worked all the time, didn't have enough time for us, didn't speak the language, understand the customs and the culture. So I was constantly a fish out of water for most of my life. And we moved into neighborhoods. In some neighborhoods, I was not dark enough. In some neighborhoods, I was not light enough. And this was a problem. And I got into fights. I was misunderstood. And I always felt like, you know what? The greatest power someone could grant me is the power of invisibility, because I just wanted to be invisible. And so I hated this narrative for a really long time. I just didn't like my life. But later on, as I grow up and I start to realize all those things were gifts meant for me to become who I am. Because I keep thinking, what if I stayed in one home? If I was born into the dominant culture where I fit in with everybody? Now, if the wind would blow, I'd be like, oh, it's kind of cold. I can't handle that kind of temperature change. It's so frigid right now. And then I wouldn't know, like, can I overcome this seemingly insurmountable obstacle? I'm like, I don't know. I've never been tested before. So all those challenges have forged me into the person that I am. All the bad experiences, getting into fistfights and getting into all kinds of trouble, some of it my own doing, I must admit, allowed me to become this person. Me holding my voice for 25, 30 years allows me to spend all this time now using my voice. So there's good and bad.
There is. That is a beautiful way to look at it, and honestly, the most powerful, that in every scenario, at the very least, there's a lesson if we're willing to accept it. Chris, I'd love to spend our next 10 minutes together just delving into what's next for you, and then we'll open this up to the audience.
Okay.
Your ultimate goal is 1 billion. Right now on Instagram, I honestly thought you would be at it before this episode. I was so nervous, but now I still get to ask. So you're
Yes.
approaching 1 million on Instagram,
Yes.
over 500,000 on LinkedIn. You are a testament to the power of moving through fear. I want to know how this latter part of your journey has impacted you, the things that are most significant and important to you right now, and then what is next, especially if there's anything dealing with fashion, because initially that's what I wanted to bring you on here for. You look incredible. You're all dripped out. I'm sad that I don't have enough time to come back around to it. So, hopefully we'll reconnect later. But can you just share some thoughts on your journey of success, the impact that it's had on you and those around you, and what it means to you?
Wow, there's a lot there for me to unpack. The first thing I wanted to say that you say you're a testament to being able to overcome your fears. When it comes to social media, aside from the initial YouTube videos that I made, I want to clarify something.
Okay.
It takes courage to overcome your fear, knowing that you will fail and that you care about failure. Here's the weird thing about me. I don't even really care. People are like, Chris, do you want to get to 1 million? I'm like, I don't know. If it helps, sure. I don't know. So I only post when I want to. And if a post doesn't like take off like a rocket ship, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When I was hovering around, I think around 30 or 40,000 followers, as you had pointed out, like in February 2019, just creating kind of random posts, really, not knowing what to do with it. I did care at that point. I didn't care that I was loved or respected or famous. I just cared like, this is all a game. And I like to play games that I can win. And maybe life is just one complicated game that we didn't have the instructions for. Like the TV show, The Greatest American Hero, where he's given a suit and they lose the freaking instructions and he can't fly the suit. He doesn't know how to use it. So I just look at Instagram and social media as a game. What are the rules? What are the ways that we can win? And I was obsessed with that. But once I was able to figure it out, the challenge seemed like not that interesting to me anymore. So I create sometimes reels or single image posts or carousels, and I don't even really care. 1 million is a nice round number for my kind of OCD like tendencies, but it doesn't matter to me. So for other people, and this is going to sound like the paradox here, the less you care about achieving something, the more likely it is you're going to get it. Like, I don't care to grow a following, and I have a following. I don't care to be respected or liked, and sometimes I'm respected, and sometimes people like me. And I think that's a reflection of the peace and harmony that you have within yourself. If there's tremendous self-awareness and self-acceptance, I think you emit an energy into the world. I think it governs how you speak, your tone, the words you choose, and actions that you take, that all of a sudden attract people to you. And how you see somebody or you meet them for the first time, they have an aura around them or a vibe. Some people like to use the word vibe or aura. And I'm trying to work on an acronym, what I think an aura is, but I think the A has to be authenticity. And R probably relatability. Like, there's something very real about you that I see some part of myself in you, and that's very attractive. You draw people to you. Conversely, people who are constantly worried about like, what will you think? Is this right? Am I gonna fit in? They send out a different aura, a different energy. And it's like, I think predators know this. Like when certain prey start to feel scared, they vibrate a certain frequency. And you know what? Who gets eaten? They're the ones who get eaten.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, because yes, it's almost like the less you care about others' perceptions, the closer you draw to the people that are truly meant for you, because it's the real you. Whereas when you put on a mask or share a narrative that really isn't authentic, one, it's hard to maintain and it's unfulfilling, but two, it will definitely attract the wrong people. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Whereas this
I
is,
do want to speak about the fashion a little bit, if
yeah,
I
let's
may.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up? So
So go ahead.
you had the post. This is what started this all. You've been teasing, and it's like I'm waiting for it, man. Like I've listened to so many of your podcasts, and
Yes.
I've been following you. You've got, if no one knows, he's got a highlight reel on Instagram that is nothing but fashion, and it's amazing. It's just like your collection of happy experiences from all
Yep.
over. So, what is your interest? Is this your next stepping stone? Is it just a passion? You're gonna share more of it? What's up?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think there are the things that you say, your tone of voice, the things that you do. There's your physicality, your physiology, like how you look. Some tall people transmit a certain energy, shorter people transmit a different energy. And then there are things that you wear that signal to people who you are, your beliefs, your opinions, your perspective into the world. As a socially awkward introvert, I always find it very daunting to go into an event or a space where I don't know anybody. It's like flashback to junior high, right? Like I don't want to eat lunch by myself. And I'm not even lying. Like I just went to an event where they brought together 17 or 18 influencers from all over the world. And I just felt like sitting by myself and just staring at the table. That's all I did until somebody eventually would talk to me. So I've devised certain techniques to invite people to talk to me because I'm so socially awkward. I don't know how to begin the conversation with a room full of strangers when it seems like everybody knows everybody else. Now, if you wear something a little bit weird, right? So if everybody's wearing a black hat and you wear a red hat or a green hat or a purple hat or no hat at all, somebody's like, "Oh, that person's a little different. I wonder what they're about." And they might walk over and it's like, "Oh, I like that you're wearing orange instead of purple. Tell me more about you." Or, "Hey, I like the frames that you're wearing. Where'd you get that?" Or, "Those shoes, are those mismatched socks?" Yeah, we can have a conversation. So
Nice.
I think for all of you who are a little bit shy in talking to people and meeting folks, wear one little thing that's different and let it be a conversation starter. So when I started to do this, I wore a hat. It says God is a designer. I am not religious. I'm not practicing anything right now. I was raised Catholic, but I gotta tell you, that would just begin conversations, both good and bad. And I'm willing to face the heat, whatever it is. And people would throw comments and remarks. And I was thinking, okay, where else can I take this? So, I like colorful socks and I like to introduce pattern and colors. And I always thought of myself as pretty conservative when it comes to fashion. But in the last 2.5 years, I've really just given myself permission to explore different forms that I've always been a fan of, but wasn't not brave enough to try.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a funny coincidence now. People are like, "Whoa, loving the vibe. What are you doing?" And I'm now helping my other friends shop and figure out their vibe. Because here's the thing. When you go to a networking event, I mean, most introverts won't, but let's pretend like you're going to go to a networking event. Who do you remember? You remember the people who do unusual things. They zig when everyone's zagging. And you remember that they were really good conversationalists.
Hmm.
And you might remember a color or a pattern or something. But if you think like in a normal day from like a busy conference or event, how many people are they going to meet that day and who will they remember? So all of this in marketing is to be remarkable. Give them something to remember. Give them something to talk about. That's it.
Do you have any other little tips or tricks that you use like that? I'm just asking because moving into the audience portion, we do have a question from Milka that was, besides having top skills, can you talk more about how to put yourself out there and to be discovered? So in an in-person scenario, wearing something that's unique, making sure that you leave an impression is very powerful. For the realistic scenario that we introverts will face behind our computer screens at home, what other tips do you have as far as client outreach or just discoverability? What do you think the best path to discoverability is?
Okay. I believe this 100% in my heart. I want you to know this. This is not me pandering here, okay?
Okay.
I believe introverts have a superpower. 100%. And I'm speaking as one, right? I know people don't believe me when I say I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert and we have a superpower. What is our superpower? Our superpower is our ability to listen, to think before we speak, to hold space for other people, to delve into the craziness of our own mind, and to be super introspective.
Hmm.
Introverts have an ability to think long-term, short-term, and just start to formulate plans in our mind. And I think that makes for a powerful content creator. You know, people will ask me, are you into philosophy, meditation? You must be religious. Not really.
Hmm.
I just had a long time talking to my best friend, me. I've just been in my head for a really long time. And now all of a sudden, when people ask a question like, what do you think about that? I'm glad you've asked, because I've been having a very lonely conversation with myself and somebody else wants to know this answer. Great. I'm going to share it with you. And I think that's pretty powerful. That's pretty dope. So I would tell people that I want to make content so good that I don't have to develop social skills. Now, I'm going to tell you a super nerdy story, and you're going to laugh at me, and you're like, what a crazy head job this guy is, okay?
Yeah.
Many, many years ago, I won a ticket through an Adobe Live jam session or something like that to go to Adobe Max.
Wow.
And my partner and I, Emily, she worked, at that time she worked for me. We both got a ticket each, and it's like $1,000 to go to this thing. So it's held in Las Vegas. And Emily at the last minute says, I can't go. I'm like, Emily, you should have told me this sooner. I could have given this ticket to somebody who would have wanted to go. You're killing me. But in my mind, I was thinking, Emily, you're screwing me over because you're my one safety blanket in this whole operation because I don't know anybody. So I'm wandering around the hallways being a weirdo, of course. I think this is like 2018, maybe 2019, barely. I'm walking around and I was thinking, what do I do? What would be the weirdest, most uncomfortable thing for me to do right now? So, you know, the sessions would let out and hundreds of people would fill the hallways. What I decided to do is to imagine the people as a river, and I wanted to be a rock in the river. So I stood in the middle of the hallway when the doors banged open and people came rushing out. I just stood there, kind of like Bruce Willis's character in A Sixth Sense. No, it was not Sixth Sense, Unbroken or Unbreakable, right? I think it was that the name of the movie. Anyways, it's Unbreakable, where he when he touches people, he gets their story and he knows if they've been bad or good, naughty or nice. I just stood in that river and I just stood there as people walked by. I didn't even move. I was just sitting there. And eventually somebody walked up to me and said, hey, do you make YouTube videos? I'm like, yes, that's me, friend. How are you, friend? What do you want to know? I'll help you. And that's what I did. And eventually another person would recognize me and I would talk to them for a little bit. And each person who talked to me made me feel a little bit more comfortable in this place. So I don't know how many people were there. Let's say 8,000 people were there. So there were 8,000 strangers. And then there was 7,999 strangers and one acquaintance. And I just kept doing the math. And it's hilarious because I called my wife. I'm like, babe, do you know what I did? I tell her the same story. And she goes, God, you're such an ego freak. You just stood there until somebody recognized you. I'm like, babe, that's my only skill. I'm going to stand here until somebody sees me. And now it's becoming a little bit easier for me to walk into a room where somebody might say something to me and just help make it a little bit easier and do that little icebreaker for me.
You know, even if that does sound a little strange, that is such a powerful way to overcome it. I mean, like we search for all of these answers, but sometimes just being still and letting the experience happen leads to such great things. I'm going to give a little quick shout out to our friend Eric Moore, who has joined us because I know that he lit up when you talked about the power of introverts. You know, we've had a discussion with him about the superpowers that we do have. And that is a thing that we all should recognize, is that little bit of extra time we take to analyze things, to connect with people, to explore deeper questions. Like, all of that is so powerful. So all right, everyone, this is your show now. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat for Chris. Would appreciate it. And Chris, while we are gathering questions, can you tell us how to stay connected with you? If there are any upcoming projects or events that we can support you on, anything exciting coming up, or any shout outs that you would like to give to people who have inspired you on your journey? I'm upset that we didn't get to make it to a discussion on Keir McLaren and Stoicism because that has recently become something I've been super interested in. I've been following Ryan Holiday and the Daily Stoic, just like those little bites of reminders. So, maybe we can continue that at another point. But yeah, I would love for you to let us know how we can stay connected.
I try to make it as easy as possible for you to find me.
Okay.
You can find me at the Chris Doe on most social media platforms. In many cases, I only have one account on each platform. So if there's a weird misspelling, an extra space, a dot, an extra I or an S in there, please be very, very careful out there. There are many people who are going to prey on you not getting enough sleep and sending money or information that is, it should not be sent out to other folks. And I've been working on this actually, that if you type in Asian bald guy talks and it'll just appear on YouTube, that'll be me.
The
So the
king of
brand is going to
keywords.
extend beyond. I'm trying to make it real easy for you to figure this
No.
thing out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are those innovative techniques that we are talking about because people are searching that. That's incredible.
Well, somebody told me that they forgot who I was, typed in some Asian bald guy talks about
Yeah.
something, and then when I saw that, I'm like, okay, we're gonna put that keyword, the meta keyword, into every one of our videos. So we're just gonna make it that much easier. So it wasn't my intention, but that's what comes up. So here's a quick side note, tangent. I find it hilarious that you go into some European countries and there's a Thai place and it's called that Thai place. So when you search what's the name of that Thai place, it shows up. And this is them embracing, okay, this is what's happened.
Yeah.
And we're just going to bring it in. So I find those names to be hilarious because I understand how search works.
Yeah. Those little things, they make life fun too, in a professional setting. Just like those little changes are so fun. Heather has actually got a question for you, and that is what do you do to recharge that does not involve alone time? So, how do you recharge while also remaining connected?
And this is going to sound really weird. There's a couple of things I do, and they're exactly the opposite, right, of what you might think. I find it truly inspiring and motivating and uplifting and recharging when I hear the stories of the people who've been impacted by the things that we do. Because here's me throwing out 1,000 stones into the universe, and then every once in a while, someone picks up a stone and is like, I got that stone, and this is what it meant to me, and this is how it helped me. And hearing that really lights me up. And my wife often does not travel with me, but she recently went with me to Houston. I was accepting an award and everything. And she could see it. She can see in the eyes of the people that the people who really truly follow us and implement the things that we talk about. And she lights up too. And this is the really cool thing. I think as humans, as a species, we actually want to see other people do well. We care about people. There's goodness in the world. And when goodness happens, we light up. I think I forget the guy's last name, but his name is John. He's married to a famous actress. He's an actor himself. Krasinski, I don't know his last name. It's something like that, right? And he put out this bit during COVID called Some Good News, and it went crazy viral.
Wait, are you talking about Jim
Is it Jim?
from The Office? The
The
actor that
Office. It's
plays Jim
Jim.
from The Office? Okay.
Yeah, I think his
Okay.
name is John,
John
but I don't know
Krasinski. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Krasinski. Okay.
Yeah.
So he does Some Good News, and he was like, okay, this girl graduated school and did this, and this puppy was rescued today. And it was so counter to all the negative news that we see, the vitriolic stuff, that the world responded like, we need some good news right now.
Yeah.
And I think we want to see people do well, despite what you might think. And so when people are doing well, it lights us up. So when someone comes up to me and tells me something positive, although my wife doesn't have a direct relationship to that, she feels lit up
Yeah.
and she's energized. The problem is she's not used to this thing, so it's exhausting when you're not used to it. But for me, it really lights me up. So Heather, you're out there making media and content, posting things, even if it's your daily creation. I don't know what you call it, but when people look at that and just makes them smile for that one moment, you've put a little grain of sand in that jar of positivity, and I think that's a good thing. And that's what lights me up. Knowing that what I do serves a higher purpose keeps me going. And I'm just getting started.
I love that. Okay, so we have this habit of allowing our audience to join in, and in the spirit of the conversation that you just finished, we would love for them to be able to turn their cameras on, say hello to you, express their gratitude. I'm first going to allow Eric on because he has a question that I think would be perfect to wrap this episode up, which is, what is one question? Well, here, I'll let him ask it. And while he's asking, we'll invite everyone else into the room. So take it away,
What's
Eric.
up, fellow introvert?
Hello, Eric. Good to see you.
Good to see you. What is one question you wish people asked you but rarely do?
There's a lot of questions. I'm trying to figure out what question here. Okay, I'll do this because I was just talking about it. I wish people would ask me, what role has your mom played in your development?
Answer it.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
No, I got it. I just didn't want to presume that you wanted to know the
I
answer.
do.
No, we would.
Absolutely.
So I put it out there. I think in traditional Asian culture, women play a much more supportive role. And my mom and dad comes from the old country, comes to the United States, and those systems are in place, and it's tough. And my mom is a super loving, caring, gentle human being. And my wife, I'm so blessed to have my wife, but she loves my mom, like maybe sometimes more than her own parents, you know? And it's because she's seeing what I've seen all my life. And my mom is a very gentle, loving person, but she's also a super artistic, creative human being. That if she were born in this country to different parents, I think she might have been a world famous painter. She's taught herself how to draw and paint, and her entire family, meaning her siblings, are all very creative. They're singers, they're poets, they're photographers. They do crazy, amazing things. They've struggled because they didn't come to the United States at the right time in the right place in that moment. And there's something that I really admire about my mom is her attentiveness to other people, her selflessness. And I didn't think it shaped me at all because I was like so much patterning myself after my dad. He's the stoic one. He's the one who taught me about delayed gratification, that your life is long, but your time to make it is short. So put in the effort up front and you'll reap the rewards. He accidentally taught me about the Socratic process. Every time I got in trouble, he would just ask me lots of questions to drive empathy. Like when I did something bad to our neighbor, he's like, what do you think the neighbor's kids think about you right now? I'm like, fudge, I don't want that question asked of me right now. Later on, I learned that this is the term. So I keep thinking my dad's the guy who's made me. But there are some parts to my mom that I didn't recognize till much later. And there's something that she did that was a very heroic thing given the circumstances. When I decided to go art center, my dad probably lost his mind. He's like, this place costs the same as Stanford, and why couldn't he go to Stanford? And what's he going to do with the degree in design? Like, what is that even? And then my mom told my dad, you are not allowed to share your opinion with your son. And here's this little woman, she's like 5 feet tall, tells my father, you're not allowed. And you know, if you know Asian culture, like that's not even something you can do. But I like to think of myself as a really strong-minded, strong-willed person, that I would do it despite whatever my mom and dad said. But the fact that she shielded me from this, took the bullet from me, allowed me to go through art school. My dad never said anything about it. It wasn't until long after I graduated that my mom told me the rest of the story. And so my mom has been my champion, my hero, my savior, and takes none of the credit. And then that is a shout out to all the moms and the dads out there who do the exact same thing for their kids. And I have to say, I wouldn't be here without her.